Hello folks! Welcome to the Poly Champions YouTube. Today we have a replay review from an Ai-Mo bullet match. You'll learn how to follow resource indicators to find villages, when it's not worth it to claim a village or siege a city, and a dramatic ending that comes down to mere seconds. Let's watch the replay.
Hello, I'm McGoon. I am a pro member of the Dragons team. I've been playing for the past 2 years, and we're about to look at a bullet game against Chris, who is the leader of the Krakens team. He is also a pro player. As you can see, I've spawned in the west part of the map. Got 2 animals and 5 forests, which is quite a nice start. Got quite a few forests around the edge, and also quite a few mountains. Ai-Mo gets quite good metal rates, so that could be quite useful later on. Unfortunately for me, there are no resource indicators around my capital, so I'm shooting in the dark a bit here as to where my villages might be. But generally, I'll want to head towards the center, as that's a good. Controlling the center often means you control a larger part of the map than your opponent. So start by training a second warrior, pretty standard. Here we see Chris's spawn, not quite as good as mine. He has only 1 mountain. He also has this animal and fruit, which suggests there might be a village over there. So he can get his warrior. I move to the center. I find a mountain ruin, but no villages yet, which is unfortunate. Chris's turn again. He finds the village. He's got 2 fruit in there already. Here I choose to get climbing. I want to get a better idea of the land, and ruin early on, that could be very good. It also gives me vision on this part of his capital. Also tell me there's no villages between us, but also the center of the map doesn't look very busy. There is this metal on this central mountain here, so I know there's a village around there somewhere. The rest of them are accounted for, but that one means there is a village somewhere in this area. Chris moved onto his village. He's got 2 animals and 3 fruit. Quite good. Quite a lot of resources he can use to upgrade there. He wants to get hunting and upgrade his city. Now, Ai-Mo has the option of going philosophy early on, as they start with meditation. For a lot of situations, philosophy is a very good tech for Ai-Mo to go for first, but on Tiny Dry specifically, you often benefit more from going straight for an upgrade tech and getting stars from upgrading sooner.
I've heard that philosophy on tiny maps is not useful because philosophy is more bang for your buck, big maps over time. And in this situation, right, because the resources overlap. In Ai-Mo, that doesn't happen very often. Usually you can't use the same tech to upgrade your first few cities. You have to get different techs. Then philosophy makes sense. But in this, he can use hunting to upgrade both of those first 2 cities.
Yes, exactly. Ai-Mo gets very varied resources, so getting parallel resources, very nice. We see Chris's second warrior heads towards the center but doesn't find anything yet. And here I meet Chris. I get 3 stars from that. That's nice. Another bonus on top of what I'm about to get in the ruin.
Ooh, what's
I
the
get
ruin?
It was a population ruin, which we see here, which gives me a capital upgrade.
Very
Which is
nice.
very nice. So I don't need to get a tech immediately. I could delay that if I wanted to. As I have the stars per turn already, I can get a 3rd unit there if I want it. I have more options now. Very useful for me.
So, but are you're gonna go for the village first or go for the ruin because it's contested?
I'm not sure.
We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. If we look, this village up in the top that we've built, it doesn't have very many resources in it. It's got 1 animal and 1 fruit, so which is quite common for Ai-Mo. So I cannot upgrade that with just hunting. as I've already gotten the capital upgrade, I'm not as in as much of a rush to upgrade that. I don't have any of the techs yet, so I've got time to still decide on what I want to do with my stars. Here he moves towards the center again. 2 fruit, good indication of a village. He captures his second city and upgrades that for a workshop. So he wants the stars early. The vision won't help him all that much as he doesn't have the units to reach whatever he uncovers. So he'd still have to wait several turns before he could make use of the vision he got from an explorer. By which point, the stars from the workshop would probably pay more than he would have got from the explorer. I chose to go towards the center here. Well, that is in part because this ruin here that is contested, but also we I know this mountain right in the center has a metal in it, and it's too far away from my capital, his capital, and this village up here to be related to any of those.
Oh, so you think there's a village near there?
Yes, I'm worried that on this corner fog tile here, right in the center, Chris can see a village, in which case I need 2 warriors nearby, to be able to take that from him. Getting the center village gives me control of the map, as I mentioned earlier, and as well as that, with him only having 1 unit that I can see here, I can potentially get both the ruin and the village, which I think is here in the middle from Chris early, which gives me control of the top section of the map, as that would cut him off entirely from that area. If we continue playing my turn, we actually see where the village actually is, as the mountain vision. It wasn't where I thought it was initially, but still, I can kill his warrior as he moves it further forwards. I can prevent him getting that village or the ruin. So I've now got a level 3 capital and got the stars back from there. So I've trained another warrior so that I can send it towards that small village that I've skipped over for now in favour of the centre. Now Chris's turn. He moves forwards and discovers the village and the monument, the ruin in the centre. He uses his monument in his capital to get the upgrade there and the 5 stars back. So that upgrades stars. He then gets riding and a rider. At the moment, he's quite far away from the middle. Like at most, there's 1 village in this corner in the west and east. So he's thinking he wants riders to expand further in my direction. So to get any villages that might be contested, because he doesn't know where I am yet, but
Right.
he can figure out.
He doesn't have any vision on you, but he can probably
Yeah,
deduce that you're either in the
yes,
north or the west. You wouldn't be in the east.
yes. You can see that there's only 3 fog tiles in the um, northeast edge that are uncovered. So he would have been able to see my capital if I was over there. Um, there is room for me to be up in the north, but he would have probably seen 1 of my units by now if I was up there. We see on my turn now, I move forwards and kill his warrior, claim the ruin, or move on to the ruin. I use my monument to upgrade my city again, but I also get forestry here, which allows me to chop these 2 trees at the top that were in my capital, and I now have exactly enough stars to get a giant already with a population growth.
Wow. You already got a giant. Nice.
Yes. And that also pushed my warrior towards the center, so I could move it up towards this village faster. So here, I will know at this point that Chris didn't go for philosophy, as his score was not high enough. He's got a lower score than myself, and on earlier turns, philosophy is a tier 3 tech, so it gives you 300 score for it. So at this point, I know he doesn't have philosophy, so he doesn't have the mind benders to counter my giant. So unless he can get an early giant on his own capital, I've got a big advantage here, despite only having one city to his two. Here, because he met me for 5 stars, he was able to get roads and move his rider and warrior into the center, so he could kill my central warrior and take that village. I get the ruin and it's stars ruin, but I got riding and rider. I've seen he's got riding. I know that this central city is quite far away from my capital. I'm going to need riders and possibly roads to be able to fight effectively over there. He kills my warrior. There's an animal down in the east corner, so that suggests there's a village over there.
Does he have forestry? Oh,
Um,
he has
he,
forestry.
he got forestry just before capturing the city,
That
I
makes
believe.
sense. Yeah.
He can upgrade the city with a road and a forest. He can also upgrade his second city again for 2 forests and a road connection to his capital. So that's 2 upgrades he can get with forestry. That's my turn again. I go for roads. I rode my rider into the center, kill his warrior, and bounce north where I know there's a village because of these fruit. So I'm now close to being able to capture that if I want it. The roads also allows me to move my giant straight towards Chris. He can see this giant now, so he's now aware of what I've got if he wasn't already. So yes, Chris connects up his city. He'll presumably upgrade that in a second. He wanted the roads so he could move his rider forwards. He saw where I moved my own rider, so he was able to move forwards and attack that, and then bounce back into safety. The bounce revealed more fog. He opted not to upgrade his small city this turn, but instead he chose to train a warrior and a rider, just because he doesn't know what I've got in the fog. So he's thinking that I might be able to siege his city and take it from him. I choose to move back into the center with my rider and bounce. Instead of towards the village, I choose to bounce into my city, partly so I can heal up more easily, but more importantly, if I moved to that village, then I wouldn't be able to kill his rider when he moved in to attack and take it from me. I chose to road my giant towards this small city here rather than towards his capital. I'm thinking he must be planning some way to protect his capital, because if he cannot, he loses. So he'll be either looking at mine vendors or getting his own giant to protect himself from mine. So I choose to go for the small central city, which I know the giant will be able to take, rather than going for his capital, which may
Right.
end up wasting my giant's use.
Exactly. Because there's a very good chance he can get his own giant there, or like you said, a mind
Yes,
bender. Although you know he doesn't have philosophy, so mind bender is
that is true.
unlikely. But it's less likely for him to get a giant in that small city because he already has the
Yes,
monument in his capital. So you know he's already got a good amount of population there.
yes. Also, I can see 7 of the tiles in this city, and 5 of them are fruit and one's a forest. That's only 6 population. With the road, that's 7. So it's not too likely that he can get a giant in this city. He may be able to get border growth, but the border growth and all the upgrades before that is very expensive, so it's quite unlikely he can get the giant there, as you said. We play on. Yeah, I used my monument to upgrade the city, and then a lumber hut and a road, as I want the connection to my capital to get that population there as well, in case I need a giant in the future. Um, I get a rider in my capital as well. Chris opts to move his rider forwards and kill mine, which is fair enough. He gets a lot of vision out of that, and a 3 HP rider isn't too useful. He upgrades his capital now using the road and forestry. He takes a board growth here. get all of the forests, which will allow him to get a fairly cheap giant, as he doesn't need to get any tech for it. He also chopped this forest here. There used to be a forest in this city. He chopped that. So he's trying to scorch earth what he can, remove the trees, get the stars back, prevent me from upgrading it. Here we see I siege the city. I couldn't move onto this north city yet, but I did move my units closer to that direction. I have the units nearby so that I could kill this warrior if needed. He retreats his warrior, try to keep that safe, save units, captures his eastern city. The road connection there gives population to his capital. He can upgrade the east city. He upgrades his capital now for a giant, which pushes his warrior into the center so he can explore more there. He places a monument in the east, which gets him the 5 stars back and allows him to train an extra unit if he wants it. Here, I'm moving to attack his warrior that he's moved into my vision, trying to prevent any units moving forwards and giving him vision around. So yes, I wanted the vision around his capital, so moving onto the mountain helped with that. This other rider can kill and then retreat. I moved it towards just down to this edge, so I revealed this fog tower. That's because there was a small chance that that tile could have been a ruin. I got mathematics before capture.
Why math?
So I've seen that he's got his own giant, and unfortunately for me, my capital doesn't really have another giant in it. Like, it's very hard for me to get a giant in my capital because
Yeah.
of the population growth that I got earlier.
Yeah.
There's only 2 population from this one mine behind my capital. So I've gone for catapults for maths here to get the catapults I need to defend from his advancing giants.
Oh, so you're getting it more as for the catapults and the ranged. I got it. Okay.
Yes. My other option would have been something like archery, the archers, but with him having riders and roads already, archers would have been quite weak, and he moves towards and kills my unit. That's fine. He kills the unit on the mountain, partly to protect his area, his cities, but mostly so that he can road his giant forwards and get the 2 movement rather than just the 1. I move to kill the warrior, he's moved forwards, and get vision on his northern city using the mountain. So I've captured the north city now. That can be upgraded using forestry, but I opt to use roads. Well, more expensive means my capital, I use roads to connect both the north city and the central city, which means my capital now has 3 out of 6 population. If we look in the stats, I'm on 5 out of 10 for the killer monument. I can't upgrade my capital easily using sawmills or mines, so I'm looking for a monument to get the giant there
Yeah.
later on if
The
I need
only
it.
way is with a monument. Mm-hmm.
Chris moves units forward to try and attack. Here, he wasn't quite able to reach my city, but that is now under threat, so I'm going to need to use either train units or kill that rider very soon, or he will be able to threaten a siege on my city. He's taking hits on my riders where he can, killing them off. He gets organization here, which means, yes, this eastern city now has enough for a giant. Yes, he's got 2 giants now compared to my 1, which is a big advantage for him, as currently, we'll see in a second, I don't have an easy way to get a second giant right now. I will need a monument or more tech. Yep, I clear the rider from threatening my back city, which allows me to get the catapult to threaten his oncoming giant. I've also moved my giant towards his capital, which is threatening a siege, potentially. game, ending the game.
Yeah, putting pressure on him because can he get another giant there? I don't.
He
He.
he actually has 2 fruit and 2 forests, and if he gets a monument later,
Oh
that would
yeah,
also get enough.
yeah.
He also hasn't used the sawmill yet, so that would be a level 4 sawmill, which would be very close to upgrading on its own. He opts to kill this warrior. He chooses not to siege this
Yeah.
small city.
Why didn't he bounce into the city?
Um, this city is only level 1. It's only giving me 1 star every turn, so he could siege it if he wanted, but he can see that I have riders and warriors in the back, so he would know the siege cannot hold. Instead, so he chooses to save his rider, which costs 3 stars, instead of sieging my city, which would only take away 1 from me. Play on. Yes, he chooses to move his giant back, partly to defend his capital from my giant, but mostly, also partly because he doesn't know how many catapults I have, so he's trying to protect his giant. Um, Here I'm moving forwards, attacking his warriors, trying to again thin out his army. Here, I move my rider down to get vision on this city in case he's got catapults of his own. See if I need to retreat my giant, although admittedly it's a bit late to do that now. I get another catapult and 2 riders. That's to combat this giant, which is coming towards the center. Because although it's not a very useful city, it does have good area control. It gives me all these roads that he cannot use, whereas I can. And if the city were to border growth, that would be even more control over the area, almost completely isolate his eastern city. Chris is spreading out his units to try and make sure that my giant doesn't kill anything while he prepares to get rid of my giant himself. He moved his giant down rather than towards my city because he knows that I have catapults now, and that if he moved his giant forward, he would be taking unnecessary hits. I move my giant into a city, sieging, moving my catapults forwards and riders forwards, so that he has to move his giant back, and otherwise he would lose it. I use a sawmill and forest to upgrade the my second city, which I get a border growth in. It doesn't have many resources in it, although there's just enough to get a giant there with forestry, along with the sawmill. Then another round of riders, just to make sure I'm still training units. Chris tries to get a giant, and
Oh,
unfortunately,
what happens? Did he run out of money?
right right at the end, he did run out of money, but he had these forests at the bottom, so he could chop for the extra population he needed. Unfortunately, at this point, I think Chris ran out of time because he had been taking longer than he
But
had.
he just ran out of time on the clock and he couldn't get that
Yeah,
last resource.
yeah. What Chris was actually trying to do here initially, he was trying to surround his city with units
Are you
so
gonna
that when he got
Houdini
his,
you? Oh.
yes, that was his plan. He was going to surround his city with units so that when he popped his giant, my giant had nowhere to move to, and it would be instantly killed effectively. And that would have left me a giant with no giants to his then 3 giants,
Yeah.
which would have been a big issue for me. Although I
Sometimes we
did have
call
the
that
catapult,
trick a Houdini or a poof.
yes. Um, Also, we do see down here that he did, in fact, build a road rather than a lumber hut there, which again may have
It's a
cost
mis-
him the time
it was
that
just
he
a
didn't
misclick.
have.
He just was trying to go
Yes,
so fast. You know, even if he popped the giant, I think you still had control over the map. You had such an advantage. I think in the end you would have won the game anyways.
just turn the fog on. Yeah. You can see that I have 4 cities to his 3. So while he did have the giant advantage here, um, I had the catapult's ready to weaken his, as well as the riders ready to combat any of the small units he trained. As the game went on, I would have been able to outproduce him thanks to having an extra city. If it did progress further and I was able to border growth this central city, that would have been a huge negative impact on him, as that's a lot of area that he can no longer use roads in. With organization, I can upgrade this northern city as well. So I do have a few more giants to get, whereas Chris is much more limited. I think he only has one giant easily available to him after his
Yeah.
giant.
So even if he had gotten that giant, it wouldn't have been
Yes.
enough in the long run. You still would have won, I think. I agree.
Yes. If the game had been drawn out, I think the advantage was mine. Although there is always the chance that with his three current giants and riders, he may have been able to push out and quickly gain ground on me while I had no giants, which may have been enough to turn the game.
Hey, well, thank you very much for talking through the game. This was very interesting.
A pleasure.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. It helps us a lot. For more Polytopia games with skilled players and expert commentary, click the links in the description. Join our Discord server. Get on a Poly Champions team. The link to the Discord is also in the description. Take care. See you on the next one.